Welcome to the next episode of Flyer Nation. I'm Matt Mohan. If you missed our last episode, you can check it out on the Lewis University Television Network's YouTube channel, where we highlighted the women's softball team. Today, I'm going to be joined by Coach Samantha Quigley Smith and junior guard Carly Graverson of the women's basketball team. To start, I'm going to be joined by Coach Samantha Quigley Smith. Coach, how are you today?
Doing good.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
You are entering year number 3 now as the coach here at Lewis. Just tell us a little bit about your background experience, why you chose to work here at Lewis.
I grew up down the road from here in Joliet, Illinois. Went to Joliet Catholic and then played college basketball at DePaul University. After graduating from DePaul, I went overseas for a little bit and played professionally. Thought that wasn't for me, so came back home. There was an assistant position open at the University of St. Francis, so I started my coaching kind of career and gig over there. But when we were growing up, my older sister and I, we went to basketball camps here at Lewis every summer. Our uncle was actually the women's basketball coach here back in the day in the late 90s, so it was pretty neat for us. I actually have my old camp ball in the office right now.
Nice.
It's got some wear and tear on it, so it's been pretty cool.
So you have a lot of experience both as a player, as a coach. You were assistant at St. Francis. How would you say your leadership style has changed throughout the course of your entire career, whether it be as a player or as a coach?
I think as a player, I was a point guard, so I was a loud, vocal, maybe sometimes yelling at people.
Yeah.
And so the coaching style has developed into more of I would say a relationship building mentality, where it's really important for our student athletes to relate to us as coaches, but then also buy into what it is that we're trying to do in the process of each year. Every year people graduate, student athletes leave, and so it's really important for us to kind of set the tone early on in the year, and that's something that our group has done pretty well this upcoming season.
Yeah. What would you say, what is the most meaningful part of being a coach so far?
I would just say like the reward of our student athletes becoming successful women after they've left here, after they've left Lewis. It's not so much about the wins. Don't get me wrong, we're competitive and we want to win, but at the end of the day, we want to win in all aspects of life. So, a lot of our women, and you're going to hear from Carly Graverson here in a couple minutes, she's done some pretty extraordinary things, not only on the basketball court, but in the classroom, and then just out in the real world. When they leave Lewis, I think they have to take their experiences that they had here and really apply them into life.
Absolutely, yeah. What would you say is your greatest memory so far as being a coach, or your favorite moment?
There's quite a few. Here at Lewis, I would say making the NCAA tournament and winning a game last season. It had been a couple years since our program and team had won a game in the NCAA tournament, so that was a huge accomplishment for us. But just their individual successes that they have, and a lot of them have occurred off of the basketball court, and so that's pretty awesome to see. It's not just about how they perform on the court, how many points they score, how many rebounds they have. It's about those other things, those other little things that they're doing, not only out in our community, but here on the Lewis campus.
Yeah. So now, you guys have had a lot of success. Last year you had a great season. You went to the tournament, as you said, but it's not all, there's some ups and downs. There's ebb and flows to every season. What would you say has been your biggest challenge so far in the past 2 years?
I think our biggest challenge is just maintaining the competitiveness and success in such a great league that we're in. The Great Lakes Valley Conference is one of the best leagues in the nation. At one point last year, we had 4 teams in the top 25 in the nation, which is pretty amazing. So to be able to consistently keep up that competitiveness and continue to be successful in such a tough league is difficult. And this year will be a great challenge for us. We graduated 3 really great players that were big scoring players and components for us. So to be able to adjust from year to year when players graduate and student athletes, leave Lewis, I think that's pretty awesome to have a program that continues to maintain the excellence that it has.
Absolutely, yeah. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I'll be joined once again by Coach Samantha Quigley Smith. Stay with us. Welcome back to Flyer Nation. I'm Matt Mohan. I'm once again joined by Coach Samantha Quigley Smith of the women's basketball team. Coach, we touched on this a little bit earlier before we were talking about how important the academic success is to these athletes. it's everyone wants to win games, everyone wants to be successful, but what would you say is the key to balancing a student's academic success off the court as well as their playing success on the court?
Yeah, I think student athletes have a huge mentality of time management. They really have to lock in because of the different schedules that they have every day, and even traveling on the road and having to go to games. And at times there's a component where they may have to miss class. So there's a lot of communication, and we talk a lot about that, having open communication with each other, but then also our professors that we work with on a day-to-day basis. And as student athletes, we have to understand that we're students first, and so going to class, our program has academic updates that they all do every week. And then we also have an academic athletic specialist that all of our student athletes work with. So having all of those resources and using them is really important. And our student athletes know that.
Yeah, very good to stay on top of your players,
Yeah.
at all times, keep the light to their foot. Now, not many people may know this, but one of your recent losses, one of your recent graduates, Jessica Kelleher is her name. She just signed a professional contract overseas to play at Antwerp of Belgium, as you said.
Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest key to overcoming the loss of this player? She had a great impact. How do you think it's going to affect the team this season?
Yeah, she absolutely did. And I think Jess was a great example for our younger players in terms of work ethic. She really transformed her physical body and from her freshman year to her senior year, but also expanded her game. She was able to, I think, individually make herself even more difficult to guard, and being one of the Division II National Players of the Year was pretty important aspect of our seasons the last few years. So this will be an interesting transition. I think the balance of our team is going to be pretty evident. We're going to need contributions from everybody, and everyone's going to kind of fill her shoes. And not that that's going to be an easy thing to do, but I think our players are up for the challenge. They're excited for the season.
How do you feel personally as a coach to have influenced her so much and have a direct impact on such a successful player? Now, she's in the Lewis Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. How does it feel for you?
Yeah, I think that it's pretty great, but a lot of it is her. It's her mindset and her individual drive and competitiveness to be better, and that's not just on the basketball court. She was a tremendous student as well, and an academic All-American for us. So I think, as someone who's helping her guide her in the right direction and lead her, it speaks volumes about the type of person she is. But then also, I think what our staff has done to help transform her, and not just her, but our other seniors that graduated last year too.
Absolutely, yeah. No. So we talked about, women's basketball. It's a long season. You guys play a lot of games. You'll maybe beating up on some easier competition earlier in the season, but later you got to face some tougher challenges in the tournaments. What would you say, if you guys fall behind in the game, maybe double digits, and you guys have a mountain to climb, what is the biggest key to keeping your team's morale up? Do you have any go-to strategies to keep your team mentally locked in the game so that you guys can come back?
I think one of the biggest things we talk about is playing in the moment. So just focusing on each possession, not so much worried about, the huge mountain that we have to climb, but focusing on the moment, the couple seconds or the couple short possessions that we have in front of us. And if we can be successful at those couple possessions and we, rack up a lot of those, we're going to be in good position to hopefully get ourselves back in a successful state.
Absolutely, yeah. So now, in these past 2 years, coaching is a new experience. I'm sure it was for you. Is there anything that, you've enjoyed about your coaching experience that you maybe didn't expect or foresee, something that surprised you, pleasantly about being a coach?
I think it's when our incoming players come in, their realization that they're now a small fish in a big pond. A lot of our players, I think, come in as freshmen and they were the best player on their team. And so I just had a conversation with one of our freshmen. She came in and she said, "Coach, I was the quickest player on my high school team, and like now it's not so much." And so she's got to take her level of intensity and her, she has another gear that she has to go to, and she's slowly realizing that. So I think that that's kind of a fun moment as a coach to kind of help navigate incoming players and young players through this process of being a college student athlete. The juggling of student athlete and the academic side of things, they need people to help guide them, and I think that's what we've been doing.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to be joined by a player, senior forward, Carly Graverson. Stay with us. Welcome back to Flyer Nation. I am now joined by senior forward Carly Graverson. Carly, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Could you just give us a little bit of background about yourself? How long have you been playing and why you chose to play here at Lewis?
Yeah, so I guess I started playing basketball in 3rd grade. It's because I wanted to play hockey and my mom was like, no. So she was like, maybe you should try basketball. And then I fell in love with it. So it's been a constant in my life ever since. The reason I chose Lewis was ultimately the academic side of things. I'm a chemistry major, so I looked at schools based on what I could do in terms of chemistry and research and building my resume and all that stuff. And Lewis was really the place for me. I work with Dr. Kelleher in now the DK lab or Kelleher Research Group. That's been really important to me in my decision to come to Lewis.
So you mentioned you're a chemistry major. Have there been any unexpected challenges in balancing the life of being a full-time student and a student athlete?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a balance that's tough to maintain, especially doing like research. I'm not always here because we're on the road, so trying to figure out how can I do homework while we're on the road and we're away so that I can, while I'm here, actually be in the lab doing stuff. I think that's kind of the balance I've had to work out over these past 4 years.
So you are a recipient of the Barry Goldwater Scholarship. It's a very prestigious award. It's for research in the science field. What does it mean to you to be one of the very few people that have received this scholarship?
Yeah, it's an awesome honor. I mean, the first one at Lewis, and I hope not the last, but it's just been kind of a surreal experience. I never knew about it until my advisor kind of mentioned, hey, maybe you should apply. And I was kind of, I was like, maybe I'll get honorable mention, that would be cool, but to actually get the award has opened so many doors. It's been a really cool opportunity, so I'm really grateful, I'm really blessed.
Yeah, that's awesome. What would you say, growing up, you've played basketball for a long time, what would you say is your biggest influence as a player, or do you have a favorite player that comes to mind?
I don't think I could choose a single influence. I've had so many coaches, my parents, and teammates who've just like made me who I am as a player. Playing against Jessica Kelleher for the last 3 years has been huge in my impact as a player and as a person. She might be my favorite professional player. There you go. Shout out to Jess.
Nice. Now, what did it feel like? What was it like to take the court here at Neil Carey Arena in a Lewis uniform for the first time?
Yeah, I think my first time was Flyer Fan Fest my freshman year, and even that alone was like the coolest thing. So actually to come out for a game, it gives you chills just thinking about it and that first time experience, because you look forward to being a college player for so long.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have more from senior forward Carly Graverson. Stay with us. Welcome back to Flyer Nation. I'm once again joined by Carly Graverson, senior forward for the Lewis women's basketball team. Carly, what would you say is your favorite moment or favorite win, favorite memory, 4 years now here at Lewis?
Favorite memories, none of them are basketball related, I can tell you that much.
Nice.
The wins are great and you always remember them, but I think the most important thing is just spending time on the road with teammates. I think our trip to France is probably my favorite experience. I agree with Coach, those trips to Normandy, those have been some of the best. I think we all got goosebumps when Taps and our national anthem started playing when we were in the cemetery. So that might be one of my favorite memories that comes from Lewis women's basketball.
Awesome. Now, coming to a new school, playing college basketball, the competition steps up a leg a little bit. Are there any silly fears that daunted you when you first started playing that you now think, I was worrying about that too much, that's just silly? Did you say anything about that? Yeah,
it's fun, especially now being a senior, looking back and seeing the freshmen kind of have those fears. Yeah. You have to laugh a little bit because they worry about, every little thing, every little detail. Did I do this right? Did I do that right? And ultimately, it's still basketball. So I think one of those fears is that you're going to mess up constantly. And I think the moment you lose that fear is when you start to succeed. So
absolutely, gain some confidence.
Yeah.
Is there anything, if you could go back in time and tell your younger self, give your younger self any advice, or give any advice to younger girls who want to play basketball collegiately, what would that be?
One would be, don't take yourself so seriously. You're going to be okay. The second piece of advice would be to just always work hard and show your teammates that you care, because those are like the most important things, I think, as far as recruiting goes if you're looking to play college basketball. And once you're on the team, just keep that effort up and keep that teamwork up, because those are the two things that will really make you stand out.
Awesome. Now, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind here at Lewis, the footprint that you want to leave?
I think for me, putting the student and student athlete is kind of my goal for my legacy. Like you mentioned, chemistry major, Goldwater, those are just a couple of things that kind of speak to what I've tried to do here at Lewis. But just like being able to balance the two, I hope kids kind of can learn from what I've gone through, and they'd be willing to try to balance those two, because you really can't do it.
All right, Carly, thanks for joining us. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to have more from both Coach Samantha Quigley-Smith and Carly Graverson. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Flyer Nation. I'm Matt Mohan. I'm now joined by both Coach Samantha Quigley-Smith and player Carly Graverson. Now, guys, your team traveled overseas this past summer. You guys went to France to play a couple games. Could you just tell me a little bit about that experience and how it helped your guys' chemistry?
Yeah, I'll start. It was a really great, I think, team building experience, but our players also received the academic side of things. So we had a Professor Dennis Kremen, who is a fabulous man. He's probably watching this, so I just want to mention that. And he traveled with our team, but prior to leaving for our trip, he actually did some classes with our team. So we took a few night classes before we left, and so they were able to get some sort of credit toward their academic major or minor, and it was a really great learning experience for our group. We actually followed in the footsteps of St. John Baptiste de La Salle, which is Lewis's founder. So to be able to kind of see the places that he worked and his mission work and where he lived, we actually went to his home. Nice. So it was a really cool experience for our team. And then at the same time got to play a couple basketball games. So awesome. It was an all-around awesome trip.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think as far as team chemistry goes, like we get to travel together a lot in season, and you're playing basketball and you're doing all these games, and so there's really a focus. Kind of, it's a business trip really. This trip was a little different, that we got to explore Paris and the surrounding areas, and we were just kind of together. And of course we played basketball, but it was a lot of just getting to know each other better in a whole different type of world, I guess.
Okay.
Another area that we traveled to was the beaches of Normandy.
Nice.
So we were actually on the beaches of Normandy a couple days before the 75th anniversary. Okay. So this is the storming of the Americans and the British troops onto the beaches. So that was a really great experience for our team to be at the cemetery and to hear our national anthem playing. It was just a really special moment for them.
Awesome. That sounds like such a great experience for you guys. Now, for you guys personally, how would you say your relationship off the court has improved in your time here in the few years that you guys have been here together?
I'll start because our experience has been non-traditional, I would say. Coach Sam actually didn't recruit me because she came in my sophomore year. So at first it was an interesting transition, just going from another coach to Coach Sam. But I think over time we've started to understand each other's communication styles and then leadership skills, as far as how, not only how we communicate, but how we demonstrate our leadership on and off the court. I think that's been something that's really evolved for the both of us. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think Carly's focus on the academic side of things has really been something that's stood out for our program and our team. And she's a great example for our younger players that are coming in and student athletes to know that you're a student first and then you're an athlete. And she does that on a day-to-day basis, and that's something that we kind of preach to all of our players.
Yeah, awesome. Now, what would you say is the biggest challenge you guys are anticipating this year, or what would you say is the biggest challenge you guys have faced together in the last few years?
Our conference is tough. I mean, I think that really sums it up. The GLVC is up there as one of the top conferences in Division II. So we know every time we go into a game, we're going to see some good competition. So I think just the day in, day out keeping up with that is a challenge in and of itself.
Yeah, and I think every year with players that graduate, and obviously this year is a very unique one with who we've lost, but every year you go through those growing pains a little bit. Hey, how are we going to adjust, without so-and-so, or now with the addition of so-and-so? So it's really important, I think, for our team to trust the process and understand that sometimes things might take a little bit longer than other things, and that's okay.
Absolutely. Now, you guys had a great season last year. You were 27-5. What are your biggest goals going into this year? How do you continue that success or even take it to the next level? You lost some players, you've gained some players. What would you say your goals are for this year?
I would say one of the biggest goals is returning to the NCAA tournament. But with our returners, I think they want to see success, not necessarily just in wins, but in the progress of our group from a positivity standpoint, and even our relationship building. I think that's something that they've really focused on here in the summer and in the preseason, to really lock in on our language. We've been talking a lot about how we communicate with one another, how we're going to be most successful. And so I think that's one thing that they're really focused on in this preseason and into the regular season.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, really. I think our goal, we always want to do well in conference. Like Coach said, we always want to do well in the tournament. But yeah, it's way more than the wins and losses. I mean, we want to go ahead and build relationships that we know are going to last a lifetime. So I think that's always a big goal.
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about the on-court success. I'm going to focus a little bit about how you maintain success off the court. Coach, what do you do specifically to stay in contact with a player once he or she has graduated?
I think it's just that constant communication. You mentioned Jessica Kelleher. We FaceTime and we text all the time just about how her experience over in Belgium is going. But just maintaining communication with all of our alumni. We have an alumni welcome back weekend where they get to play their own little pickup game, which is maybe a little bit, interesting to watch.
Definitely, yeah.
After a few years removed. But just maintaining that communication. We even have one of our seniors this past year, Tierney Lockett, who actually joined our coaching staff.
Awesome.
So she's now our graduate assistant. So just, I think, continuing to talk to our alumni and keep them involved in the program. I think these are all great things to keep people involved and understand that there's a great spirit that's about the Lewis women's basketball program.
Now, you didn't recruit Carly. It's a little bit of a strange situation, but what would you say has stood out about her? What positive qualities do you think she has as a player and as a person that really benefits your team?
I think just her overall competitiveness on a day-to-day basis. She brings the most consistent effort probably of most of the players on our team, and you know exactly what you're going to get when she gets here. She's giving you everything she has each and every day, and in everything that she does. And that's really difficult to do, when you're having a rough day, you're not feeling physically well, whatever it may be. And I think from Carly Graverson that you're going to get an all-out effort. And so I think that just speaks volumes and lets our young players know that, regardless of what it is that you're going through, you can still push through and have a great attitude and great mindset and be your best self each and every day.
Now, Carly, what could you say about Coach? What do you think are her greatest strengths? What do you think has made her such a great coach to play under?
I think a really big part of it is that emphasis on team. I think you can do a lot with one player, but you can't do great things with one player. So I think a lot of our focus has been, we read books about leadership, we read books about being a team, and just having those conversations and open dialogues has really been important to our success as basketball players, but as women in general, to just be better people.
Awesome, yeah. That's going to be all for this episode of Flyer Nation. I want to thank you all for joining us. I want to thank Coach Samantha Quigley Smith and senior guard Carly Graverson for joining us today. Best of luck on the season to
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
All right, awesome, good luck. All right, we'll be back with another installment of Flyer Nation. I'm Matt Mohan.